Right, away we go. This is the second talk. I think everybody, possibly except Tom, was here for the first one. We know basically what skeleton cancellors are. I had a couple of covers missing from the previous slide, previous talk. I couldn't find them. Here's TPO7. I draw your attention to this here, which I'm quite sure is a letter L and not a 7, and is why these skeletons all use town names rather than numbers when skeletons were issued to TPOs. We'll see some more of those today. The other one that's missing here is an example of it. The other example that was missing last time, TPO Cebu, TPO4, the clerk has used the number 4 date slug as an index letter there in the middle, you can see. Anyway, this is 1990 onwards to 1996. This was a very busy period with lots of new offices, and many of the new offices were given skeletons when they first opened. Here's a nice card of Kuching Airport, which those of us who went to Sarawak a few years ago on the society visit will remember. And this one has been cancelled with a, it's unaddressed, but basically Kuching Airport, I think uniquely, was given 2 skeleton postmarks at the same time. And I'll show you these now. There is one where the letters APO are very close together. And this is just a close-up from the card. And then here is the other one, and the dates overlap and do for a period of time. So I'm sure there were 2. It wasn't that the lettering was changed. You can see A, P and O much more widely spaced. And we've got an airport, thanks to Google Translate, Lapang Tibang, sorry, excuse my hopeless Malay, means airport. So we have 2 cancellors there. Here's another example, a commercial example of the APO, widely spaced from 1990. And then these continued in use to 1992. There's a last known date in September of that year. A nice registered cover here. Again, airport, this time with the word Kuching as well on the label. Our friend TPO7 got into trouble. Oddly, I came across a photocopy of a page from Jack Roberts's collection, which is no doubt still in the attic at in Huddersfield, where he actually explains that the police got involved and took the TPO7 SLD, single line date stamp, the Italian canceller, away as evidence in a possible criminal investigation. And so they had to issue a TPO. And notice this time, this is, we were talking last time, there were two lots of skeleton kits were bought. This is the second set. You've got the Malay abbreviation for the month, but also notice that is certainly a 7. It's clearly not at right angles as you would with a capital L. And that was initially issued in 1990. And it appears to have gone on right up to 1996. It's unusual for the skeleton to be used for such a long period, and but it does look as though it wasn't several episodes. It does look as though its use was continuous. Here's what's close to the last known date. in 1996. And very often, of course, we don't know when a chancellor ceased to be used. All we know is an earliest known date for its successor. In this case, an English chancellor, English type chancellor, has an earliest known date of February 1998. But by then, Chanky Tex there was often a delay between new councillors coming into use, and a great many came into use in the 1990s, and there being reported and examples circulated. So TP07. And now we come to a range of offices. Rajang Park is a shopping development in Cebu. It was given a chancellor, a skeleton when it opened. The office is, I think, more or less underneath. It looks to me like a Guinness glass. It's the second building from the end, so I think it's probably here. And there's the front view of it. And this is a typical of the mini post offices, of which a great many were opened in this period. Jack Roberts reports it opened on the 1st of December 1990. And here from April 91 is the skeleton. I've got an example from 1993 of it in use, but the next chancellor after 93 that I've got is a Reiner chancellor of the year 2000. So there is a huge gap there to be filled in. And one of the things that's very striking is that we have huge gaps where we don't know which chancellor was being used. I'm also very curious, I don't know whether Len possibly knows, I think this came via Jack Roberts, and there's two very small pencil up arrows there and there, and I can't work out whether, and there's nothing on the back of the envelope saying what it is, and I don't know whether, I know there are various printings of these things, and I don't know whether it's to do with the postmark, and I can't see if so what it is. I suspect it's something to do with the stamp. But there's these little up arrows which someone has carefully drawn in.
Could it be something to do with the gap between the Rajang and the park? Does that vary?
Well, it doesn't seem to. I haven't measured it strictly, but anyway, I'm not sure, but I thought I was looking at it quite hard and I couldn't work out what it was.
Yeah, my reaction was something to do with the gap on the postmark. I can't see anything with the stamp because that's a fairly basic.
Yes.
10-cent definitive.
Okay, I'll have another look and see if I can. I'll try measuring it more carefully. Here we're a number of these, in fact, quite a lot of these offices are in the outskirts of Kuching. Tabuan Jaya is about 5 kilometers from the city centre, and the office opened on the 1st of July 91, and obviously again in a shopping centre, and pictures here of customers. And the attractive thing in so many of these post office shops are that they have tables outside where you could sit and drink tea and coffee with your friends. Here's the more important from our point of view, the postmark from July, and there's this, on this example from the 20th, there's a big gap here. On the 25th, just 5 days later, it's closed up. And this was used, this councillor was used for 6 months, I think, if I'm rightly. Yes. And the rest of the time, the lettering was closed up in the way it is on the right there. But the first few days, it had a large gap. Satok.
Excuse me, Roger, question. You can actually alter the skeleton canceller to do that. You don't have to have a new one. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's like a printer. You've got you have blank slugs that you put in to space it, and whether the clerk didn't think it was very elegant or whatever, I don't know, but it looks as though it was taken apart and the blanks here, at least one of them taken out, and the T, this is closed up, and you can see the T is now nearer, well, it's about 10:30, and that's about 9:30.
Right, yeah, thank you.
Satok, another mini post office. This shot, there doesn't appear to be any equipment, so I think it must have been taken a day or so before the post office moved in, and then on a couple of days after it opened in July, the same. Here's the Satok canceller with a registration label. Very often, when they first opened, the offices used a very tiny, almost certainly rubber chop to put the office name in on an otherwise blank label. Moving on, Bako, I think. National Park, just up at the outskirts, the entrance. This one here, we have a late use of a rubber chop for an R, late in the sense of it being first used in certainly I got it in July and August. This is a 14th August 91 example, but it's also not like other rubber chops that were issued. We don't know why this one was issued. Jack Roberts was quite coy about, I guess Chanky Tex and his other correspondents would sometimes tell him why a canceller was issued. Jack, by and large, wouldn't reveal publicly that it's not in the journal if councillors were stolen, which was not unknown. Sometimes they were lost. So this is Kuching Z. Kuching had many councillors, so why particularly another one was needed, I don't know. One of these classic Malaysian post office postal prepaid envelopes. Jalang Abang Galau in Bintulu, the office, very often they're on street corners. The post office, obviously the Post Malaysia seems to like getting corner premises, which certainly makes it easier for people to find. And there's that one, and here is the councillor, and with an abbreviated form of the name, Jalan Abang and Bintulu, and then Sarawak reduced to SWK. And this is from the first day of business on the 28th of January. Here's some examples on a couple of nice postcards. This is the Bintulu Bazaar and the Aurora Beach Hotel, both in and around Bintulu. The liquefied natural gas plant, less attractive image, but again with obviously council courtesy. A Philip He postcard for Malcolm's benefit, although I'm not sure whether you collect cards as modern as 1993, Malcolm.
No, I don't. but it's an interesting one.
But I do.
But you do,
the
don't
Philip
you,
Heath cards, and I'm not sure I've got that one in my collection. So if you'd like to send me a couple of scans of that, Roger.
Will do. Yeah, I can do that. These ones are both SW Singapore. They're sort of classic ones.
Yeah. Well, I've got the one on the left, but not the one on the right.
Oh, the hotel. Yeah, it's not the. Unless you're a car fanatic, I guess it's not the most attractive car.
I don't think I've ever seen it, quite frankly. So.
Maybe a reason for that. Here's, I think, one of the last known. June. This is actually July. Actually, I've put here June. Oh no, sorry. This is July. This is the last known date of this canceller, July 95. So this was around for a number of years, for more than 2 years. And it does overlap actually with the temporary rubber date stamp that succeeded it. I've always thought we ought to have one weekend a display of post office stationery, all the other things with Post Malaysia, the things that make the post office work. And we've got quite a lot of them lying around. And we've never put them together and looked at them. Just about every one of them has a unique reference number and so on. But this is a money transfer form dated 1st of August 95, and they all have the post office chops on. That one obviously again is from the Bintulu mini post office. Moving on, another Kuching one, this time Batu Tiga. Now this again is quite typical, and I suspect there are ones that I haven't got and therefore are probably at present unrecorded. This looks as though it opened in late 1992. I've got this cover from December, 28th December 92, and we'll see within a short period, this set of lettering is replaced by one. This is January 93, so within a month, it just says Batu Tiga Kuching. If the reason was ever known for changing it, it's not recorded unless it's again buried in Jack's collection. But Batu Tiga there with a second councillor. And one guesses that apart from Chanki Tex's visit, that small group of perhaps half a dozen covers may be the only ones that survive with that councillor on. I've only got one copy of this one, and one or two other members I'm sure will have copies as well. Here's a commercial one from Batu Tiga in April 93 on one of these air letter forms. This one I noticed for the International Philatelic Exhibition in where was it held? Kuala Lumpur in 1993. Moore's Jaya office. This one had several councils over a period of time, but when it first opened, it was given one of the, I'm fairly sure looking at the lettering, this is a very late use of one of the first generation of skeleton councillors, and this is really at the end of its life. The ring is barely visible. That's January 93. It opened with a temporary rubber date stamp, and they used black ink, which rotted the date stamp, the rubber date stamp, very quickly. So it was then given a skeleton, this one, in January 93. By the October of 93, they had been issued with another temporary rubber date stamp to replace this one. and in December 93 there was a second one. They continued to use the black ink, so it continued to rot the rubber date stamps. So in 94 we find a second Moors Jaya skeleton. This one, from a second generation one, you can see DI there, the Malayan abbreviation for December. And again, using these blank registration labels, and in this case, not putting the office name on it.
Excuse me, Roger, I noticed we're seeing some of these caches, these Wackle Posts mini
Yes.
caches. I mean,
Yes.
I guess Changi Text got them to put that on, but it's very, very helpful, of course.
It is extremely helpful when this is very faint.
Indeed, yes. Yes.
It does help, and it looks as though every office had one. It seems to have been part of the standard kit that they were issued with when they opened. And this second canceller went on until, as far as the earliest I've got for a successor was July. So again, only in use for 6 months, although there is a certain amount of commercial mail. There must have been quite a lot of commercial mail going through this office, because you do find examples of it postally used rather than philatelic mail.
So I have similar caches for Sabah, and presumably Post Malaysia was sort of universal.
Yes.
And every state would have done what, would be told what to do, or would actually follow the sort of the country guidelines rather than any state guidelines. I'm just wondering.
Yes,
Anyway.
I have a few examples from Sabah. But I actually haven't compared them, John, but it would make sense that there was a sort of post-Malaysia directive on these.
Mm. Yeah.
Batu Tuja. This is Batu 7. This is 7 miles down the road. And again, we have the problem that there wasn't a 7, so they had to use a name instead. Here's an example from 1993. And again, this is I think relatively, oh no, beg your pardon, this isn't it. Yeah, sorry, this was 6 months, March 93. Sorry, I put too much information on there. And then this is November. And here, because there wasn't an address as such, we've just got Post Mini and Batu 7. I think this is the equivalent of the little chop that we were looking at previously. And Batu 7 just goes out, it's just on the top there of the registration label. This Sakama is an area near the centre of Kuching, and this time we have WPM, Wackle Post Mini Post Office Sakama, April 93, and then the following year there's another skeleton, but this time without WPM, just Sakama. And again, the little chop has been applied over the registration label. This was at a university complex campus, Institute of Technology, MARA, M-A-R-A, and the little office on the campus. Here's an example of it with ITM from April 93. Registered example, again, this chop just with mini post office ITM Sarawak branch. November 93, and this you probably, if you collect modern postmarks, there is a postmark UITM, which is when it gained university status in 1999. This I'm not sure how long that skeleton went on, but there is. This is from November 93. It's again typical of this problem of simply having no material to get information. Tabuan Jaya post office here. We've had an earlier, I think there was one from this office in the first display I did. This is from 1994, and the lettering, the spacing is quite similar to 1991. I suspect it was taken apart. These are standards. There'd be a slug here for that gap, and I suspect it wasn't there the whole time. It went away, was used elsewhere, and then when it was needed here again, a kit was sent out to it. Again, we've got a huge gap. This is the only one example I know of in March 94, and I've got an earliest known date for the next councillor, March 98. So we've no idea how long this one was in use. I think that date is late for an English type 3. Many of those came in the early 90s rather than the late 90s. So probably that was used for a quite short period. Jalan Astana, near the centre of Kuching, the office here, standard councillor, earliest known date in May 94, and an unaddressed one from October 94, and the English type 3 councillor that succeeded it came in July 95, so probably used for just over 6 months. Miri, one of the big post offices, it had a skeleton for a short while. This is September 94. The two rather blurry strikes of it. We don't know why it was issued. Miri again had a number of councillors, so why they needed one more is not known. Here's a much better strike, obviously philatelic, of the same one from October 95. Saujana, here's another. This is in a multi-storey car park, as I understand it. Again, with tables outside, so you can post your letter. Sorry, and have a coffee with your friends. And mini post office, Sajana car park, Kuching. And you can see it opened in July, and again about 6 months later was replaced. So commercial examples, non-philatelic examples of these are extremely hard to find, and if we could encourage a few people to collect them, would no doubt command quite a reasonable price, but I suspect there's a significant lack of demand in the market. That's here's Sungai Merah. This one we're on Sarawak Philatelic Society cover, and this is on the first day, 1st November 95, and again, this one does appear to have been used for 5 or 6 years. This is from 2001. It's one of the very few examples of a skeleton going over the millennium. There are plenty of examples which I'll show if people want in a third talk, between 2000 and 2006 and 2011, 2012. But this one, I have got non-philatelic covers in intervening dates between 1995 and 2001. So I'm fairly certain that this skeleton actually did last the whole period, in which case it lasts remarkably well. Maybe there wasn't a great deal of mail, but as I say, I've got a number of commercial examples over that 6-year period. I saw, when I was preparing my first talk, I'm quite certain that I saw my example of the Lutong skeleton. For the life of me, I can't find it. I suspect it's buried on my desk. And that is the end. Now, let me just conclude by saying that I chose to go to 1996. After 1996, the next skeleton that Chanky Tex and so on drew to our attention is dated 2006. Now, did 10 years go by without the skeletons being used, or is there a whole bunch of odd covers if we could only find them and locate them, or indeed maybe they've just all gone to the great incinerator in the sky? Anyway, that's the end of that period, 1990 to 1996, of the skeletons. And at that point, I'll stop the show and let me.
Yeah, I can add a
Yeah.
little information on the Miri skeleton postmark.
Yes.
I was in Miri at that time. I actually went to post a registered letter, and I found out, wow, a new postmark. And I asked them. They said the regular postmark was sent for repair. And in the subsequent few days, I followed up, and the regular postmark came back maybe after about a week. So the skeleton postmark was in use for a very short time to do registration work specifically.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was there.
Right. Excellent, Francis. Thank you. I'm not sure, Francis, whether we saw any of your covers this time. We did certainly last time.
Well, they are all in Kuching, and I'm not in Kuching.
Yeah, well, that was true.
Yeah.
Many of them.
I certainly did send a few registered covers with that skeleton postmark.
Right.
Yeah, I'd very much like to thank Francis actually for the work he did do in actually tracking down the covers and the mini post offices and the other places. So you and Chanky Tex did some very important work. I mean, I must admit, it's a shame that Chanky Tex isn't with us as far as I know, joining us.
No.
Maybe old T, if you next see Chanky Tex, you could say how much we appreciate seeing his covers from this period. I mean, I must admit, I rank Key Tex with Harbury Hom as importance in
I must add to that to say that I'm a much lesser philatelic being than Chanky Tex.
well, maybe, but still, thank you for what you did. So, but I mean, Chanky Tex, I think, is such an important and of course the advantage over Harbury Hong is that he was able to take photos of these mini post offices and record them, much to the delight of those who collect this material. It's so nice to have a photo as well as the covers. So
Absolutely.
LT, just do thank Frankie Tech for us.
We try our best. To the best of my knowledge, I still can't get hold of the reason why he doesn't seem to want to appear on Zoom. But keep on trying.
Keep on trying, LT.
Yeah,
keep on trying.
Yeah.
Some people are really reticent to get onto Zoom. I've got colleagues at my Philatelic Society who will not countenance getting on Zoom at all.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Okay.
just
I can
Maybe
add further
confused.
to
Maybe
the-
they think their soul's going to be taken away big time.
Please don't say that. This is discouraging.
Oh dear.
I'll add a little more information to these mini post offices at Bintulu. If Roger, you will show your what Abang Galau picture.
Right,
Image
let
of
me, sorry, I need to, here we go.
Yeah, you'll find it now, wouldn't you?
Oh, difficult, huh?
Here we are. You want the picture?
Yeah, the picture.
Oh, sorry, that's.
All right, I'll leave that one there. That all right, okay. Yeah. If you stand outside the mini post office and you look on facing the road, then on the right, which would be the left side of the picture,
Over here.
you will be looking at the Bintulu airstrip.
Ah,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you
Ah.
literally hand your mail bag over the fence to. They didn't do that. That
Right.
would require a little bit of a drive around. So Bintulu Airport was right in the middle of the town.
Good heavens.
because the Bintulu airstrip was one of the first after Kuching. It was one of the early ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it is at the same site, although it would have been extended in later years
Right.
to accommodate the Focus 27
Right.
turboprop planes.
Yes.
I think they chose a new site for the current Bintulu
Yeah, very much further away.
Yeah. The airstrip actually is actually open to people to walk around at night actually. Yeah, I was there during the LNG project dealing with these Hino trucks. So I stayed there for about 1 month, and at night you can actually the airport, the airstrip behind Hoover Hotel actually is open to a pedestrian that they walk around. And there is a passage, when you actually have a bicycle path going right across in the middle of the street. The airstrip is still vacant. It's a very value property now. I'm not sure which one we get it for the development, or already have been developed. Yeah.
Not
The
sure
new
about that.
Bintulu Airport is way away from this one. Then there's no room for further development.
Right.
Ah.
Yeah, you're talking about taking bicycles across airfields. I remember 20 or 30 years ago landing in Goa in India, and there was a road, a public road across the airfield, which had basically it had level crossing gates. If you're familiar with a railway with level crossing gates, there were gates. And when planes landed, which they only did in very restricted hours. It was an awful, if you didn't, apart from, we came in, it was a military airfield, I think, or the military were the main users. And there was a charter flight with Thompson or somebody from the UK, which landed in the like 11 or 12 o'clock during the day. And that was the only civilian flight during the day. All the other civilian flights were stacked up, and you ended up sitting for hours in Delhi waiting for the connecting flight. But yeah, it had like level crossing gates. It was bizarre to after you taxied and you were pulled up at the little terminal building, and you looked back, and the road had opened, and there were these gates across the runway. Up to 737.
Before the expansion, Southend Airport had that arrangement.
Southend did.
Yeah.
Ah,
Grief.
Similar to Gibraltar. Similar to
Gibraltar is the same. Yes.
Yeah, Gibraltar.
The airstrip can only accommodate Fokker Friendship 7.
right. Yeah.
Cannot accommodate the Boeing 737. So it's a new site altogether.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's,
Oh,
That
thank you very
In
much,
Toulouse.
Roger. Well done.
Yeah,
Really
okay.
This field, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Next week we have Malcolm, I think.
yep.
You're getting your canoe out again and going up or down one of the rivers.
I'm stuck in the dicky bit of the 5th Division between the two bits of Brunei.
Take your passport.
Absolutely. Tricky place to get out of.
Right.
No, it certainly
Okay.
was.
Unless anybody's got any final comments.
Well, I'm just saying that
Yes.
one of this comfort envelopes, the Australia is given out to the Australian soldiers, etc. Will make, I think, quite a nice little Zoom presentation. But at the moment, I'm actually trying to mount 32 frames worth of the North Borneo 1931 anniversary issue. Very pretty. But I say, hopefully, I'll after a few weeks, and I've recovered from that, I will get something ready for a Zoom. But it'll be quite short, so I might need two people.
Presentation on the 1931 issue would be nice.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
if you're sure, because they're very pretty.
How many frames did you say, John?
Doing well, two frames of 16.
2 frames, not
2 frames.
not 32
No.
frames.
That would be
You had me worried for a minute.
that would be quite something. Mark, I went
We'll
to
have him
view-
doing a 1 o'clock at the Royal if he's got.
I
32.
would be, wouldn't I? Yeah. No. I looked. There was a big Spink auction a month or so ago of that of material, and the amount of material there, you probably could make that number of frames. There was sort of half a sheet of each of the values and all that sort of stuff. So there was an incredible amount. I picked up a few bits and pieces, but well, the prices now for that sort of material is getting quite high. They've always been a very popular issue.
Yes.
Anyway, sometime maybe.
Yeah. Okay, John. We'll hold you to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't hold your breath though.
Okay. Anyway, have a good week, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers then.
See you next
Thank
time.
you, Roger.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Very good.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Okay. Let's go. Leave.